Yes, Karmic Capital is that's something that I found 2 to 3 years ago. Is very sophisticated context of information practices because there are small handful of studies to explore the relationship between the people and the information in the context of the non-Western cultural information practices. So the karmic capital is something that is disguised in cultural and symbolic capitals. So it is something that it depends enormously on the cultural perceptions. So before I explain the karmic capital further, so let me explain how the capitals can be linked to the information practices. So the capitals are nothing but what people do at the temples or the cultural organizations. And if you look at these activities has information component associated with it. So these information practices, and if you look at the outcome of these information practices, though we can say that are the capitals. The capitals are the outcome of those information practices. So if you look at the capitals, the early stages, Karl Marx, he said economic capitals in terms of the labor market and the profit. And later on, late 20th century, Bourdieu said, the capitals must have material and also immaterial aspect to it. So he said, every priceless thing has its own value, and he created a human capital, a social capital, cultural capital. And late 21st century, the Castells bring informational capital. So the people bring, a lot of capitals. They unpack the economic capital into further, into different capitals. So before I create another capital called Karmic Capital, I think it's better to find a way to justify it. So I bring the Neveu. Neveu gives a good definition of capital. So she said, if there is something that you should call a capital, it should have a collection of goods and skills, a knowledge and acknowledgements. It should belongs to an individual or a group, and it must mobilize to develop influence or gain power at the end. So the capitals also can be converted into the other capitals. So in other words, it is important to consider how the capital is performed before you bring another capital onto the table. So if you look at these four corollaries, which are, the capitals must have a goods and skills, knowledge and acknowledgements, belongs to an individual or a group, or it should be considered, or it should the capital should enable to have influence or gain power. So what are the goods and skills of the karmic capital? So the goods would be the scripture books. So alms, the alms in the sense ALMS alms, and they create a lot of cultural magazines. And the temples, you have statues, buildings, and in these today's contemporary temples, you have the lot of things, that even the temples didn't have, those days. And what are the skills? These monks have translation skills, chanting skills, meditation skills, and even some monks have the IT skills, and they bring a lot of knowledge and skills to the temple. So what are the knowledge? And they have a lot of cultural knowledge. Before became monks, they've been trained to become monks, for a long time, and the people acknowledge these monks as enlightened ones, arahat, or the someone towards the enlightenment. And so these things, in these Buddhist practices. Also, there are certain things embedded in people's minds culturally, like rebirth, samsara, karma, and if you look at the Buddhist, they try to accumulate things, accumulate good karma throughout their life to become enlightened, and also they think this karma they can take into the next life. That's why they call it samsara. So this knowledge, different knowledge, the cultural knowledge embedded in these practices can give people the power to do things and think of themselves as in certain ways, and it enables to have influence or gain power. So yes, so these resources give power in society. It does apply to karmic capital too. So if you look at as a person with good karmic capital is in the society, is admired and respected in the society. So the value of this kind of capital increases with the people's contribution of donations and what they cultivate through meditation. So together they will bring more social capital, as people identify as individuals, as as an Arya person, the person towards the enlightenment. Yeah, so the karmic capital can be objectified, institutionalized, and also symbolized. So this is disguised in the cultural capital, within the cultural capital. So which will can be converted, it will be transformed into the social capital, human capital, and cultural capital, and finally, the economic capital, as Karl Marx said.